I believe we are live. Welcome back to LearnBiz The Podcast. This is LearnBiz The Podcast. Welcome back. I'm Lisa Kay, one half of LearnBiz The Podcast, here along with the beautiful Sandy Boisrond. How are you doing, Sandy B?
Doing good, Lisa. Good morning.
Good, good. So, Sandy, we're going to talk about being virtual this morning. Is virtual here to stay? That is the question. Before COVID, we were already experiencing virtual reality, dealing some in business across different platforms. But since COVID, oh my goodness, virtual has really taken on a life of its own. And the question is virtual here to stay? What are your thoughts?
So it seems we're having a bit of a freeze up. So we might want to repeat whatever was just said because our visual froze up for a few moments.
Okay. So the question this morning is whether virtual is here to stay. Before COVID, we experienced some virtual. Now, since COVID, it seems like, everybody's lives are impacted. Everybody's lives is impacted in some way or another by a virtual experience, be it professional or personal. Are we freezing?
No, we're fine.
Okay, good. So I'm going to kick it off to you to ask you the question to start us off, whether or not you think virtual is here to stay.
So I've had this conversation plenty, and I will tell you, in my opinion, virtual is basically everything right now. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're experiencing a touch of the virtual space. And even when we talk about day-to-day services that we receive, we're seeing how the virtual space is pretty much taking over in every aspect of our lives, whether it's partially or fully. We are doing things just by the click of a finger. And you're even finding that apps and other programs are being created to do things that normally you would walk into a place physically, like if you were going to take a number or be in a waiting room or things like that. Well, I mean, I just went to get some blood work done and I had to tap into the online space to check in for my appointment. So, and even when you're walking into the doctor's offices, you using some kind of device to pretty much check in many times, if they're not already using some devices. So to me, the answer is a resounding 1000% yes. Virtual is going to be here for quite a bit of time, and it's going to take away a lot of experiences that we've probably become accustomed to in our lives at our age bracket.
I tend to agree. I'm a real estate broker by profession. And one of the things that we did discuss in getting ready for this show is talking about the shift in the real estate market. Here in South Florida, you see a lot of shift because people are not being able to afford the rise in prices. So if people can't invest in a certain area, then they're going to look to other areas where there's more affordability. And I'm starting to see a shift toward the north a little bit more, towards central and northern Florida, for those people who feel like that the prices are just too high to purchase here in South Florida. And, we began discussing about, this shift and how that's going to affect people in business. And I think your basic thoughts are it shouldn't really have much of an impact because of, a lot of people are already, experiencing virtual in business and in their personal. But I was thinking about, there are some industries like real estate where networking and getting out and circulating and being known amongst people is still very important. So I think there's going to probably be a nice balance always between virtual and in person.
Well, I'll push back on the networking piece because I've actually met more people in the virtual space from different places, different countries, in a lot of my groupings, more so than I would ever meet physically in person. And truth be told, I'm not a socialite. I do not like the social space in terms of this idea of networking. So the virtual space came right at a great time for me, because when I'm in the virtual space, all the anxieties of trying to kind of meet people and talk and have that small talk right out the door. So I think it depends on the type of person that you are and what you're desiring in terms of interactions. But truth be told, it doesn't matter what space you're in. If you are a connector, you're going to be a connector no matter what space you're in.
That's
And
true. That's
and
true. But like purchasing a home is one of the most important of people's affairs that they'll ever handle in their lives. And so connecting with someone, I think maybe initially personally and forming a great relationship, and then maybe from there working virtually. I mean, I think that's how it probably will work best in my industry.
yeah, we're gonna see. I know that I'm seeing a lot of virtual home tours now. I'm seeing a
Yes.
lot of people who are living in other states, and of course, they're not going to be able to be here physically. So I think what the problem is people are so fixated on the way things have always been. And this concept of change is almost like, oh, well, how are we going to do this? And I'm like, the same way that you did it in person, right? If you are used to meeting people and connecting, then you just have to adjust to what the concept of the connection is. Because
Hmm.
think back to COVID, all of the people that had careers in different industries where people connection was the focus, what did they have to do? Video conference,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How different is video conference than meeting with groups? It's called the adjustment, right? It's like you have to pop up, because if you're doing a networking event in the virtual space, then you have to create the opportunities for the connection, right? Because you may have 20 people in a virtual room. We could all just sit here and look at each other on the screen. But
Well,
we had to
true.
start becoming creative, right? To do these little icebreakers and breakout rooms and all. And then you notice that the software had to adjust to the needs. Because then people
Right.
are like, well, but I don't want to meet with everybody. I need to kind of break into sections. Well, guess what they did? Created
Breakout
breakout
rooms.
rooms.
Yeah.
Then it's like, well, I want to, do a presentation. They have a share feature. Well, I want to do something, like a whiteboard. They create a whiteboard. So virtual backgrounds. It's like, oh man, I don't like my background in my house. Virtual background. So I think what it is we have an aversion. And I know for me, for a long time, I've always been like, oh, it's always been. And then it's like, this is great. Like I'm getting 10 times more things done in the virtual space than I would ever in person. Because picture this, there were periods of time where if you have to go to an event, you might have an event in Miami-Dade. Then you
Hmm.
have something else in Broward. Then you might have to go back to Miami-Dade or something like that. Well, in the virtual space, click, here we are, new room, click over here. So I think it's just about people's level of comfort. There are going to be those that are going to resist virtual no matter what is thrown. And that's their choice. They're going to have their tribe of people that will follow what they want. But there are also going to be those that are going to tap into the virtual, and it's just going to be a personal choice. I just happen to be one of those people that I'm 1000% virtual. And I know that it comes with some restrictions. I know it comes with some issues because we're so used to connecting with people, but virtual is where it's at. Good morning, my Sean Denise. Thank you for tuning in. We
Hey, my
appreciate your
Sean.
presence.
Yeah.
Doug, always
Good
great to see
morning,
you.
Doug.
So, guys, we're talking about, is virtual here to stay? And Lisa and I have had this conversation many times because we're both in the legal space. We both have law firms. We both have elements of our practice that is virtual. I have gone 1000% virtual. So I don't even meet with people in person anymore. The way that we're talking right now is how I meet with my clients. In addition to dealing with signing of documents and all of that, everything is pretty much virtual. So I'm fully tapped in. I don't have anything that is really an in-person element right now. I don't even have a physical office. And Lisa is kind of a hybrid because she does some things in the virtual space, but she still taps into the in-person. Now, I like
Right.
what my Sean Denise says here. Not in corporate America. They want us back so badly.
Yes,
And
they do.
and I'm going to tell you some of the reason why, and I'll talk about it from the legal perspective, because the big law firms, one of the suffering points for big law has been small law firms
Uh-oh, we got a little freeze, I think.
But now with this virtual space, it's a battle because you have a lot of people loving the virtual space in terms of family dynamics and all of these things. But big law is suffering because when we go fully virtual, we decrease billable hours. So we have to find other ways to tap into the billable hour because you can't now bill for those hours that it would take for you to go to court. Because yesterday, for example, I went to the courthouse. Normally that trip would be 20 something dollars for parking, at least a 30-minute to an hour drive to, waiting around the courthouse for whatever the issue is, having my 5-minute hearing, if even, then spending another hour or if not more sometimes with the traffic coming back home, probably having to stop for food. So it becomes like a whole day affair versus I hop online now and it's like, all right, waiting for the judge. While I'm waiting for the judge, I'm doing other things. But if you're big law, you got to think about it. Where am I going to bill? How am I going to really make that money? Doug says virtual is the future, especially as the metaverse becomes more developed. We're going to have to do a room about the metaverse. My Sean Denise says, need those billable hours. Yes. They want that money.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true. So, but there are other industries out there. It seems like what my Shine said, they're begging for people to come back to the workforce industry. But a lot of people, as you know, guys, have made pivots during COVID and they're not coming back. People have found other things to do. Remote work is really, really big. And so there are a lot of people, especially the frontline workers, it's like, oh no, I'm not going to ever be in that position again.
Right.
And so I think that's what's happening. I don't know what that's going to do with regard to all those that availability that's out there, though. What do you think is going to happen?
I'm feeling the pain because I rely on contractors, remote workers, when it comes to paralegals and assistants and stuff like that. And people are like, shoot, I have other things I can do online. I don't have time for what you're talking about. I can actually sell products online. I can provide services online. I'm learning how to tap in because COVID gave people a lot of time. And you saw tons of businesses start. You saw tons of content creators kick in. And people are realizing, wait, I can make money doing the stuff that I actually like doing. Man, they're like, forget this job. Forget this job. I'm not going back. You want me to come back? No, I'm not coming back. I'm staying out.
And I don't know if you've seen recently in a lot of television commercials where these realtor companies are saying to people, look, no matter where you live, if you want to sell your home, connect with one of our agents. We're, kind, we're trustworthy, we're smart. And I mean, I'm sure there's a market for every type of seller that's out there, every type of buyer. However, I just don't think that that's going to fit the bill for everybody. Now, whether or not there's a shift, and we see a lot of shifts going on, there may be a shift even with regard to my industry of real estate, where people may feel like, oh, I don't need to know my realtor at all. I don't really need to know you. But I think that's hard. I've been always taught from the old school perspective that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And how do you foster these relationships, but for being in the same space with people and getting to know them, making eye contact? I just feel like it's so impersonal. Although we do use virtual, it's just so impersonable when you're trying to make those initial contacts, I think.
My Sean Denise says, I'm trying to get those open job, but it's still not easy. Is it not easy because they have so many different options, or is it not easy because it's just people are looking for different things? I'm always curious about the job hunt because I've been out of the job world for a long time. And even when I've tried to get like side gigs to do other little things, I'm finding that I guess they have so many options that it makes it difficult, that job hunt for someone who's just looking for, some things to do. The virtual space is a challenge for many. I will say one of the greatest things that I tapped into early on, especially when COVID hit, was, different groupings and finding my tribe in a sense. So I've had some great experiences in virtual spaces where I had no clue. I knew none of these people. And these people have now become a circle of friends and colleagues that can refer me business, can give me some direction and advice, can support me in some initiatives that I'm doing. So I really just think it's about the collective, what collective you're tapping into. Okay, she says, honestly, I don't know. I have the updated resume and use LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm always curious to see what the job market is really looking for right now.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
curious if this virtual concept now, the way that we are doing business and engaging, if it's creating a bit of a crunch when it comes to trying to find people. Is it creating more opportunities for people to apply and maybe over inundating employers with applications? Or is it that they're now trying to zero in on certain specific skills and abilities? And Lisa and I were talking about this earlier. It's like, are they looking for techies now? Or are they looking for certain skills that maybe we're not considering? Because I know for a long time we've been focusing on science and technology, especially when it comes to schools, talking about how these tech
Sandy.
jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, go ahead.
No, you froze just a little bit. Go ahead. I think we're okay.
We have all of these tech jobs, and then it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's the zero in option. I don't know.
I find I have tried to apply for jobs online, using the so-called virtual space, but I think it's very difficult. Again, I find that it's very impersonable. And to me, making contact, maybe knowing someone inside that industry or in that job that you're looking for, all those, I look for all those extra ways to connect outside of the virtual space. However, we have to all start that way. That may be our entry point, but I think we have to get creative and find other ways to connect with these employers that we're wanting to work for.
Maybe they don't care about filling spaces so quickly. They may be eliminating jobs as people are leaving. You know what? We were talking earlier about this, the way the virtual space is operating and the way that people are able to create other ways to get things done. And it could be that maybe they aren't trying to fill these spaces because they could be replacing those spaces with tech. Because, as an example, I could hire a company to deal with my virtual, I guess, assistant needs. So I don't physically need to hire a person as my receptionist, as my paralegal, as my legal assistant or secretary. I can actually pay a company, and therefore I eliminate 3 jobs right there, and I'm paying for a service that provides me with what I need. And a lot of these companies are basically databases of people who are contractors at different levels. So now the employer saves money, and Doug is hitting it right on the head: artificial intelligence and automation. The employer no longer has to pay what they would pay for an employee. And for me, I completely shifted once COVID hit, because I was like, so I'm going to pay somebody to be at home on my 9 to 5. That's going to be a challenge for me, because now my expense is still going to be sky high, but now the income is going down with, the markets. Yeah. But then I realized, wait, I can just pay a contractor. I pay them for the work completed. So I can pay them per task, and I can get someone who specializes in this area. I save the overhead of payroll because they're 1099 contractors, and they're not on my time. It's literally, I give you a list of assignments, maybe for the week or for a few weeks, and you get them back to me within the priority order that I provide. So, it's a lot. Has projected.
I don't think we should be thinking about business like that, though. I really don't. I think that, it's one thing to look at your business and say, okay, what works for me? And I mean, that's where we usually all come from in business. But I think
today, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I'm having bad weather. Lisa, can you hear me?
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we're just having a bad connection today. And I have some bad weather in the area. Go ahead with what you were saying. Doug was touching on the fact that by 2030, it's projected that we're going to replace 94% of jobs. Now, here's the thing in my thought with this.
Let me make the point I was making, if I can. I just want to make this point because it was going to hit on that. I think that's exactly what we're dealing with. When we look out for our individual businesses, we're just looking out for ourselves.
Right.
However, we have to think of the global collective, and that's where I was going. Look at Walmart. We've all bought into this experience of the self checkout lanes, right? So for every self checkout lane, we are taking away somebody's job. And the thing is that we keep buying into concepts like this, we're reducing the workforce, and ultimately we're probably hurting ourselves and people around us that we know by shrinking the job base. So I think, on one hand is really, really great. On another hand, I think we have to consider getting to 94% of all jobs being placed by some form of IT.
Well, again, we can look at it in a couple of different ways, right? So even though I'm replacing these jobs that are at a certain particular level, if I'm talking about a cashier or a bag person or a person that's, the greeter and those types of things, if we're going to completely streamline and go automation and artificial intelligence and virtual, we have to double down on the jobs that are going to cover the ensuring that system functions. Give you an example. Right now we're on this stream, right? Each time that there's like a delay in the stream, that's something that's impacting us. So imagine each time we're having to complain, hey, what's going on? Or check our internet provider. There's somebody that has to do that work. So to me, what it does is it shifts the jobs from all the staffing that's on the floor to more people that are behind the scenes in a different way, because now you need the folks that are going to maintain the systems. You're going to need more customer care and service. And even when you look at Walmart, while they are shifting away from the people at the register, they're doubling up on people who are doing the online shopping, the shipping of your goods. Their Walmart Plus is doubling up, right? They're having goods that are being shipped directly. So it's increasing the production on that end. So I think you're still going to have room for people who are going to be dealing with the stock, the inventory coming in and out, the shipping of goods and products, more people to be doing trucking. So I think it's just going to increase the flow to another realm of work. So I don't think we're going to lose jobs totally. I think we're going to lose certain types of jobs for a
Yeah.
shift to another type.
I think you're absolutely right about that. And I don't think it's going to be employee for employee replacement. I think we'll have less employees on the virtual tech side than we do, in person as we make the shift. And so you're going to lose some. And like you said, you're going to gain in other areas. It's just a matter. It may not be equal, but it's bound to happen that there'll be other jobs that'll be created.
True. And it's definitely time for us to shift on learning some new skills, because we look at the world scheme and the way things are going. Manufacturing, of course, has to have changes, right? Because we're using more technology to build and produce. So that means we have to have folks able to handle the robotics of this process. We have to have people to handle the technicals. When things go wrong, we have to have risk managers. We have to have a lot of people in different realms. And it's definitely time for us to learn new skills. And now we're talking about Dollar General having self-service. Oh, Lord.
Oh, no, not Dollar General. No.
Look, if
what is this world coming to?
Look, I'm done. If I start seeing the Dollar Tree with the little self-service out, I know the world has come to an end. And Dollar Tree is one of those interesting companies. We probably need to do a focus on them one day and look at how their model has just killed things. Because you go into Dollar Tree, you're not spending $1.
You're not spending nearly $1. It's more like 17 to 25 to $35 each time. But Sandy, you know what? Now, speaking of replacement of humans, I used to be a gas station attendant back in high school.
Same here.
You work for you really?
I worked at the register though. I really didn't do much aside from cleaning the pumps, which I hated so badly, and filling the water out there. But yeah, I worked at a gas station overnight.
I worked at a gas station, and that job went from being pre-virtual to virtual. I watched it. I was actually living, watching the change happen. Yeah. I remember when gas went from self-pump to, it used to be where the gas station attendant would pump it to self-service. But anyway, yeah, that's how long I've been around. So I've seen some of these shifts happen, and there have been some jobs lost.
Yeah, it's a lot of shifting. I just feel like what it's really doing is reallocating our manpower. So there are things that we used to do a certain way, and it's like, nope, we're not doing it that way anymore. We're going to create a robot to do that. But if we're creating the robot to do that, there has to be somebody managing the robot and managing the technical issues and managing the risk and dealing with the safety. So I feel like it creates different categories of jobs. The problem is we're pumping children out of schools with this idea of they're just going to get a job. The problem is we need to pump them out of schools. Like back in the day, I remember we used to pump kids out of school with a couple of different things. So there would be some that would come out with like cosmetology.
Yeah, vocational, the trades.
They learned culinary skills because when I went to middle school and high school, we had home economics. We had wood shop. We had all kinds of different activities. So when you came out of school, some of you may have had some kind of a trade that you could actually put into play. Some of you went to college. Some of you went to the military. Some of you went straight into the workforce. And those government jobs back in the day, man, I wish I had gotten one of those jobs.
Good jobs, right? You can say, I'm a government woman or I'm a government man.
Yeah, man, some of them went to work post office, other government entities. There were a lot of different realms of opportunity. And right now, I feel like we just pump the kids out with this idea they're going to get a job. And it's like, no, the kids need a plan A, B, C. They need a tech plan. They need a manual labor plan. They need if I'm going to be in the professional space, if I'm going to be someone that has a specific trade that is in demand. But I don't feel like, coming from the education background and being in the classroom for a number of years, a lot of kids are just coming out of school to just come out of school. And then they just push them off to college. Or if they don't go to college, they go military, or they just go out into the world. And then it's like, well, what are you going to do? Because there's not really a culture of, I have to prepare them for the fact that not everybody's going to go to college. Right. Not everybody's going to go to the military. Right. Where's the in-between when we've taken out home ec, we've taken out woodworking, we've taken out chorus and band and all these subjects as real electives and kind of just given a little sprinkle. So some kids can get band, but many are not. Some can get like a little arts or whatever entertainment, but where's chorus? Where's all these things that used to train kids in having the ability to be an artistic, right?
And you didn't have to be in a specialized school to be able to get that type of training. You used to get that type of training in public schools around the country. You're right. It's not happening in that way. And we're pushing kids out and not giving them the mindset of how to even operate in a virtual space. I don't think a lot of them know initially how to come out and start interviewing virtually. Yeah. That's difficult. That's difficult for people like myself who's transitioned from having to interview in person to doing virtual online types of things. It can be really, really tough. So you're right. We got to do a better job in training these children up to operate in a virtual tech world.
Look, my Sean Denise says, I don't think the schools do that any longer. The kids aren't being taught anything. And I'm going to tell you, I have most of my besties are classroom teachers. That's where I came from. I was in the classroom in the trenches. And we were doing everything we could to give our kids some things. But that's just us on the individual level, right?
Yeah.
When I think about the big picture, the elective offerings are like minimal to none. They're just giving you bare bones stuff. And then it's like by the time you get out of high school, middle school.
Sandy?
But the other thing that I would say is even in Lisa and I talking about our professions in the legal profession, folks that are in law school are not being given the proper training and thought process because everybody's thinking, I go to law school, I'm going to come out and get a job. No, ma'am. Because when I came out of law school, job wasn't even on the table at all. Really? I had to create a job.
Yeah.
If I was relying on a job, I would have been screwed because the demand at that time was kind of like, unless you have certain tiers of coverage or experiences from law school or grades, they were looking at you like, no. So you had to create a job for yourself. So a lot of people coming out with me and the years following me became solos automatically. We started our own firms and that was just basically it. Let's see. Doug says, I'm promoting STEM, trade skills, and entrepreneurship on the youth in my circle. I am absolutely on board with that. When I mentor law students and high school students, I talk to them about, bro, what are your experiences with social media? What are your experience with coding? Do you understand what business and entrepreneurship means and how you can tap in at the age that you're in? So, Doug, we definitely, like my Denise said, we definitely think that that's a great thing.
Oh yeah. That would be coding. Coding is something that young people, I think, are learning more and more. But those can be some good paying jobs, 50,000 plus, just coming out the gate, you know? So I
Yeah,
think those are great careers for young people to consider. And I think there's a lot in the virtual space. However, like and Sandy, as far as networking, which seems to be one of my biggest gripe with virtual, you can meet someone in a virtual space, like you said, and then you can definitely, move to a physical, more in-person space to kind of foster a relationship with someone in business. So either way, it can work. It
right.
definitely can work. And I think it's here to stay, which is to say that for all those people that are not, that don't have computers or that are not automated yet, is there a word that you might want to put out there to them?
I'm going to say this. With each period of time, we have to make adjustments to our level of skills, our level of knowledge, our level of experiences. And for anybody coming up now, especially the children in elementary, middle school, and high school, if they are not being filled with an understanding of what it means to be tech savvy, it's a problem. I talk to my brother all the time. My brother is about 5 years younger than me. So I'm in my 40s. My brother just turned 40. So I'm just like, sir, you are a geriatric millennial. I need you to get out of this space of not being aware of a lot of the tech, because my brother is very tech savvy. So he can do all kinds of things, put things together. He can watch a video and figure it out, right? But he's not in the space in terms of understanding how to do things like
Sandy.
to use technology in order to capture business, to use technology in order to spread his information. But he's not in that space. And so it creates a lot of delays for him taking advantage of opportunities. And I say to him all the time, I'm like, I need you to understand that this world is not what it used to be. Yes, notaries still have to do the in-person, but the way
Yeah.
a notary gets their business is going to be very different. And I'm going to tack on to that.
Good point. Good
I've
point. And a notary doesn't have to be in person anymore. It's done reach the virtual world as well. Remote online notaries, that is a profession, guys. You can study, get some type of certification, and go to work online.
And I'm going to tap into that just a little bit more. For quite some time now, probably since like early 2021, I've been tapping into spaces like Clubhouse and LinkedIn a lot, not realizing that these are the spaces I probably should have tapped into for some time, and really given some effort to. And I'm not saying do what a lot of people on these spaces are doing. People are, going back and forth about nonsense, and Clubhouse, people know it notoriously to be foolishness central, because people are in rooms talking about all kinds of foolishness. But I've gotten great referrals from Clubhouse. I've met great new people from Clubhouse. I've gotten new speaking engagements and kept myself really busy. So it's all about how you tap in. Yes. Some of my online groups, I've met people from all over the US and overseas. So I have connections now in other places that in the in-person space, I probably would have never touched. Yes. So I think people have to take each piece with a grain, right? I can use this for this purpose. I can use this for that purpose. I can use this here. And then knowing that there are certain skills that people take for granted. Like my Denise, I love how she's saying, I need to become a notary again. Absolutely. Because guess what?
Yeah.
You know what virtual also creates? A need for verification of identity more so than ever. So if you're taking on certain positions and they need you to confirm your identity, you may need to have a notary stamp on a document for you, just so that you can get that position or sign up for that program. So it is still going to create opportunities for the in-person connection, while at the same time doing things like a remote online notary.
Yeah, that's true. Now, can you think of anything in business where you will say that, no, this could never be virtual? Can you think of anything?
I'm going to tell you immediately, nope. I feel like every single thing that we touch right now can have a virtual component. So you're going to have to give me an example and I'll tell you how it could be virtual. But I really feel like virtual is inundating every system that we have. And whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we're going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to escape this concept of being tech savvy. Even my older clients, I was in the middle of doing her documents. And of course, we weren't going to meet in person, because some people were okay with it, mask up, social distancing. But others were like, no, ma'am, how else can I do this? How about we got on that Zoom and we reviewed the documents? How about we did, what we needed to with the remote online notary? She figured it out. It took a little bit of time, but she had a cell phone. We got her to download the app. She was already using Zoom to talk with her family. So it was like, it wasn't terrible experience. And I've had several of those situations where I have my aging clients who normally you'd be like, oh, they're not going to be able to do this. Oh, they're figuring it out. If my mom can be on YouTube, if my mom can be on YouTube watching all her Haitian videos, all her Haitian news, and figure out all that, she can figure out Zoom.
Shout out to my mom too. My mom has figured out Facebook in a way I have never been able to figure out some of the algorithms. I'm like, really?
Let me tell you something. Yeah. Our parents who we were probably like, oh, there's no way. My mom has a laptop right now. She has her smartphone. She gets on all of her stuff. The Haitians in Haiti are on WhatsApp all the time, sending audio chat, video chat. They know what time it is. They figured it out. And trust me, while we're thinking that certain people can't, they figure it out. I promise.
I love that. I do love that part. Well, I will say, as far as real estate is concerned, it's not impossible to never meet your broker and get your house sold. It's just that I'm from the old school and I generally like meeting the people that I'm working for. And I think that's more of my comfort level, and it might not be where people are today. However, I will navigate where people navigate to.
Well, Lisa,
that's the best way I can say.
I'm going to vow by 2023, December, I'm going to get Lisa into doing virtual showings, virtual tours. And she's going to be like, oh, I'm all about the virtual. We're not.
Oh, no, that's already happening. That's already happening. I'm talking more about when you first meet people and form relationships. I just think that that's harder in the virtual space, but virtual tours, virtual showings, those things I'm already accustomed to and doing.
All right. So we have the verdict in. So when we talk about is virtual here to stay, I'm going to tell you already, I think 1000%, it doesn't matter to me what realm we're in. I believe firmly that if we do not work on making the adjustment at the elementary school level, if we can get our children to play with tablets and cell phones and find apps and play games, we can get our children to be prepared for what's coming next. And if we fail to do so, what's going to happen is we're going to be looked over.
Right. That's true. I mean, and there are, people can create all kind of apps. I mean, entrepreneurs can create all kind of apps. We got the Instacart thing. There are people that are never going to the grocery store again in their lives. Okay. Because of Instacart. There are people who are never going to have certain services outside of their home, whether it be a facial, a back massage, a pedicure. It's never going to happen again in public spaces. Because, there are other type of ways for people to engage. And so there's in person, there's virtual, all of these different experiences are being created. And there's going to be a market for each and every one of those things.
So my Sean Denise wants to know where you're at, Lisa. You're in Fort Lauderdale. Well, Lisa is Miami-Dade, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach.
Yes, my Sean, I am. I'm in South Florida. So if you need help in South Florida, give me a call. My phone number, I don't mind, 954-864-8950. And if you're in South Florida, my Sean, and if you want to connect with someone that can help you get certified for remote online notary, to get that certification, CynaNotary.com will be a good place to check out. We can try to put that in the chat as well. CynaNotary.com.
Lisa, what's your number again? I'm just going to put it in here.
It's a 954-864-8950. I do residential and commercial sales and listings.
Okay. We doing plugs.
Well, hey, that's another great thing look, it saves me from having to go to a sign company and go buy a billboard. How about that?
My Shonda says she just got her car detailed in her driveway. How about this? I have to call the man today to come and detail my car. I'm glad you reminded me.
Really?
And she said she's never going to the grocery store again.
Marshawn, where are you going to be driving that car around at $5 a gallon? Where are you going to be driving that car around to?
Look,
she
don't have to drive nowhere.
She don't have to drive nowhere. Just park it, right?
She don't have to drive nowhere. The guys come to the house to drop off the groceries and detail the car. There needs to be a service.
Detail. You know what I thought she meant by that? I thought she meant like those people who take signs and put on the side of their cars. Sorry. Okay.
No. All right, guys. So I'm so glad we had this conversation this morning. We're probably going to have a part 2 or part 3. My Shonda says she's going to be driving to the bus stop. That's about as far as it's going to go. Look, let me tell you something. If we really look at it, and we started from the beginning of our day to the end of our day and looked at how technology has impacted us, we would be shocked at the level that we are now, and maybe take it back 10 years. Go back 10 years from now and say, what was I doing?
We had no issues with freezing or anything back then, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't have imagined having someone to come do my car at the house because I would think it would be too expensive. But when I look at the prices at the car wash, it's just pretty much the same price as someone coming in my house.
Right.
So got these 2-for-1 services.
Exactly. So virtual is here to stay, guys. Might as well get in that space and start a business in that virtual space because it is here to stay.
Now, we have a couple of things that are going to be coming up. We definitely want to kind of tap into. So, stay tuned. We have some scheduled guests that will be coming on. So we'll be posting that information. Yes. Please don't hesitate to click the subscribe button. If you're catching the replay, please let us know your thoughts on, is virtual here to stay? Sandy's position, Lisa's a hybrid. So I think hybrid virtual, but she really, really taps into the personal. For me, I feel like I've just found different ways to connect. And because I've gone, where I went to school created like a trigger for me. I had students from all over the country, and it wasn't really, I didn't have any locals. I didn't have anybody from South Florida at my school aside from my partner. So I really had to kind of open my eyes. Even when I chose to go to law school out of state, that was a hard thing for me because I was like, why am I going to go somewhere where I'm not going to live? And then it was like, man, I'm so glad I did this. I lived in Michigan for like 3.5 years. Who would have thought in a million, the polar vortex, the mitten? Nah, bro.
You would have never known what snow was like.
Nah,
Sandy.
Midwest, y'all can keep that. I love y'all. Love my friend Mikkel in Michigan. Gonna visit you in the summer months, which is like 2 months out of the year. But nah, we're not doing that. But yeah, it opens up your horizons. I think virtual gives us a lot of opportunities. There are some downfalls, but I think we have enough in us to be able to sustain and withstand those downfalls. So definitely a great stream.
Thanks, Doug, for the compliment. Appreciate it.
Look, we appreciate you, my Shonda and Doug, for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you guys again. We're going to do some early mornings a little more frequently and see if we can tap into you guys. But hope you guys have a great day, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See you around, guys.
Bye.